What's up, guys? It's Rob here, coming to you after the market closed on Monday, and here we are doing another watch list. So first things first, EA, the news that we were talking about yesterday for the buyout offer. Originally, that was a $50 billion buyout market cap, but something interesting happened this morning where new news came out that the company's actually going to get bought out for $55 billion, which would be around $210 a share. So EA actually popped around 5% pre-market today. And, this was interesting because normally when you get these buyout news headlines, usually the first headline you see, is the price the company's going to get bought out for. But, it turns out, you actually kind of had a little second pop happen here and created a little bit of an opportunity. Also, in the morning, Carnival Cruise Line reported their quarterly earnings, and they actually beat top and bottom line. And we have Carnival Cruise Line in our long-term portfolio that we bought back during the pandemic. So they beat their revenue and net income numbers, while at the same time, crude oil has been going lower because OPEC has been talking about supply hikes. And they even had a great conference call where the CEO came out and said that, they plan to reinstate dividends and share buybacks over time. But, the stock still sold off because of profit taken, after the quarterly earnings. And then, short sellers kicked in during the day and, this caused the move down. But, welcome to the stock market, baby. It's just how it goes sometimes. But, this could actually be a good entry for a bounce back, considering all in all, it was good news. Just some profit taken on the news. Also, NVO, Novo Nordisk, is another name we own in the long-term portfolio. And Morgan Stanley, pre-market, cut their price target from $59 down to $47. And this caused the stock to move down, I think about, 3% pre-market. And, this isn't something I really want you guys to pay attention to much, but I bring it up for your attention because I want you guys to understand that, you can't always follow these banks and their price targets because, at the end of the day, we also had Deutsche Bank come out and, they were positive on the stock. So, each bank has, their own perspective, and a lot of times, maybe it could be malicious where, maybe Morgan Stanley's cutting their price target because they wanted the stock to come down so they could actually load up cheaper. So just telling you guys about that because that headline did cause a move down this morning, and it's something we own in the long-term portfolio. But I just want you guys not to worry about that and understand, how those headlines can kind of play out. At the same time here, I am going to, include on the screen right now the earnings calendar for the week. We did have Carnival Cruise Lines this morning, but we actually have Nike earnings coming up on Tuesday after the market closes. So, that should be another one that's really interesting because they had a big run up after their sell off. So, we'll see, how the market takes their earnings after the market closes on Tuesday. I also want to put up on the screen now the economics calendar for the week because I'm going to throw up the earnings calendar here at the same time. So on the screen right now, you're going to see, some of the key things to look out for this week on the dates and time. Also, I wanted to talk about a pretty big thing that's happened in the stock market, a big change. Right now, as a retail investor, if you don't have $25,000 sitting in, your account, you can only do a certain amount of day trades per week. So, there's actually a change in the market where FINRA signed off on proposing a change to that flat $25,000 minimum and replacing it with a risk-based system, which basically just means instead of always needing the $25,000, you only need to hold enough equity to cover a percentage of the trades you take. And there is some rumors floating around of maybe that $25,000 minimum coming down to $2,000. So now that this rule is being replaced, it's been in the market for over 20 years, where you need $25,000, to place more than, say, 3 day trades in 5 trading days, they're going to be lowering that requirement. So that's actually going to increase the amount that retail investors can, trade and invest, because they're going to lower the barriers to entry. Now, I bring this up because not only is this, a huge trade to the market, if the SEC approves this, FINRA approved on it, but if the SEC approves this, this would be a huge thing for Robinhood, Charles Schwab, the NASDAQ, and the CME, because all these companies will benefit from this change. I mean, Robinhood is huge with retail investors, right? They created an app that has a really easy interface, so retail investors love it. Charles Schwab actually holds, the most assets of retail investors, dollar-wise. And then, I brought up the NASDAQ, ticker symbol NDAQ, and the CME, because both of those are exchange-based businesses, that will profit off of fees when, more trades occur, especially with the NASDAQ and equities, and the CME with option contracts. And sorry, guys, I'm actually came down with a sickness. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, a little nasally, but I also had this cough, so sorry about that. Also, McDonald's had a headline here, ticker symbol MCD, McDonald's that we all know. The Monopoly game is actually returning to the United States for the first time in nearly a decade. And if you don't know what that is, basically, it's a business strategy to keep customers coming back, where, if you buy something at McDonald's, you'll get a little Monopoly sticker. And if you collect all of them, there is a reward for that. And I wanted to bring this up because it's interesting they're bringing this back, because I don't know if many people know about this, but the Monopoly game was actually rigged back in the day, where the people that were winning the prize, it was all rigged. And there's actually a documentary on Netflix that you guys can watch that's really interesting. And speaking of Netflix, which is timely with, this McDonald's news, the Monopoly game returning and it being rigged, with Netflix, their shares are actually down 1.6% pre-market after the White House and Donald Trump said today that they're going to impose 100% tariff on movies made outside of the country. So, NFLX is a ticker symbol for Netflix, and, I really think that's a name to watch with this, headline. It did come out 2% pre-market, but, we might see a little bit more bleeding on the name. Now, it's an interesting concept because, as we've seen with tariffs, a lot of this has applied to physical goods on, imports and exports. And now we're actually, seeing this on an intangible asset such as like software and production rights. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. Another big headline for the day, OpenAI, right? They're actually introducing instant checkout with ChatGPT, and they're going to include that in Etsy and Shopify. And the name I want you guys to look out for with this is PayPal, ticker symbol PYPL. You can actually see here, I'm going to throw up a stock chart on the day. You can actually see that PayPal took a big fat candle down today off of that news because, if people start actually purchasing through OpenAI, right, with their checkout, well, PayPal's going to have less demand for customers because they're not going to need PayPal anymore for the checkout anymore. Also, another headline, Applied DNA Sciences, which is a pharmaceutical company, actually just announced that they're going to do a placement for $58 million to launch a BNB, which is the Binance cryptocurrency, and they're going to do a treasury strategy just like you see some of these companies doing like Ethereum and Bitcoin, where basically they're just shell companies, but, on their balance sheet, they own cryptocurrency. And, we kind of seen this trend where, Ethereum was the most recent runner, and now there's going to be a Binance coin. So the ticker symbol that it currently trades under, the shell company, is APDN, but they're going to change their ticker symbol to BNBX. So this is something really interesting to watch out for, because crypto had a little pop today. And, if we see crypto keep running and getting crazy, then, this ticker here could see, a big run, just like all these other names did with these treasury strategies. Also want to include Kalshi prediction market over the weekend did $500 million in volume, which surpassed the election day volume. So we're seeing a huge surge in prediction market volume because people, more and more are speculating, and, the prediction markets are, relatively a new thing in our economy where it's becoming legalized and bills have been passed to make this more mainstream in society. So I wanted to, make everyone aware that, these prediction markets, the volume's really surging. But at the same time, everyone is, gambling with, say, sports books, and they're giving out all these promotions, and now you're seeing a lot of people bet on random events that are occurring. So I wanted to remind everybody once again, right, get a long-term portfolio, right? We have a video on the channel that explains the long-term, set up your monthly deposits, right? Buy stocks that are going to be here in 5 to 10 years, right? And that's the strategy that we have for the long term. So that's everything, that went down today, and I want you guys to be aware of. All right, pay attention to the headlines that are coming out, right? Take aware, look at the names that are going to react with the news. There's a lot of opportunity out there that we can capitalize on. So let's go, baby. It's time to get locked in, and let's make some money.